That being the case, I want to thank you for taking this time and us getting to go over a little bit of what's happening with our good friend Seth during the denouement and during the most recent episode. So, with there not being many questions, let's dive right into brass tacks. This is officially In the Shadow of the White City, one shot with Seth McClarian at the epilogue of Today I Am Wise, so I'm changing myself. Now, when we last left Seth, he was leaving from having a heartfelt come to Jesus moment with Dia. In the shadow of the wreckage of her realizing that her sire is no longer in existence, having met their final death. And based on all the information available, they met their final death at the hands, claws, teeth, and other sundry physicality of lupines. In the midst of this wreckage, and in the very real glow of success from their mission into Milwaukee, Seth leaves Frost as a security measure because, for the very real fact, Kindred don't operate during the daylight hours. In the doing, stepping outside of the Pisketeers Lounge, his phone goes off. And not the sort of going off that you can ignore, not the one text or two, but no, his actual phone rings, and not a usual sound. It's weird. And it's almost as if someone has reached across the centuries and decades and placed an actual flugelhorn into his phone. It's not a sound he downloaded.
Seth looks at his phone because he doesn't trust it anyway. Yeah, I mean, when he was a mortal, cell phones were the size of concrete bricks, and this thing is just fucking magic in a box. He fumbles at the slide to answer thing 3 times, trying to make it fucking work. McClarian Investigations?
Yes, Mr. McClarian. I believe we need to have a discussion.
I would love to have a discussion. I'm always up for a good chewing of the fat, but I was wondering who I would be chewing the fat with.
I believe that should be your only existing client, considering what has befallen our nearest and dearest Nicole. I look forward to seeing you soon. And just as if by magic, on your screen there is a GPS that doesn't look like any of the GPS programs you have ever seen before. It is very, in all actuality, a map, a good old-fashioned road atlas map with a line, as if it's a string being drawn across it, directing you to a bar, which is actually not that far from the Pisketeers Lounge. The Harmony is one of the newer opened facilities run by Kindred, and it is attempting to fill the void left by the Queen of Spades.
I have got to get myself one of these tech wizards to protect my goddamn phone. I look at the map to figure out what it's going to take to get there.
15 minutes walking, 6 minutes driving.
Fuck. Frost has the car. Okay. I'm a grown-up. I can handle this. If I wanted to have my car around all the time, I would have done that, because I'm not an idiot. And then he starts trudging, in the colloquial sense, to trudge. Placing one weary foot in front of the other. And he says, Harmony?
Yes, the Harmony. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, considerably far more new age in its design. It looks very much like what someone would imagine an old speakeasy to actually have been. It is far brighter than it should be, far cleaner than it should be. There aren't any peanut shells on the floor, no sawdust. It is, in fact, very polished and potentially a health risk. Shiny, slippery marble. The bar is far too new. It doesn't have that soaked in scent of wood oil and Murphy's soap. It is, for those who are not in the know, for those who didn't get a chance to experience what a bar was like when you could smoke inside, a close cartoon facsimile of what it's hoping to be.
So basically a millennial made a speakeasy.
Yes.
Ugh.
And at the bar, chatting with a relatively old human, is Mr. Rich, James even. And as he watches you come in, he pats the old man on the shoulder who is still talking, but James has a decidedly unfriendly fixation on you.
Ugh. Never good when the boss is angry.
Seth, my dear friend, my only friend at this point, we need to have a significant conversation.
Well, given what I've found out and presented to you, I imagine we would be having this conversation in the near immediate future. I just didn't expect it to be tonight with the goings on elsewhere.
How much have you been made aware of, considering Nicole is no longer amongst us, and that creates a power vacuum?
For members of the pyramid and members of the tower at your level, this is a moment of great import.
It is. And according to what I've read between the lines, my heir and chosen successor for this very occurrence is no longer amongst us.
It's a blow. Obviously, the pyramid would have loved to have seen at least a contender for the current seat.
No, it was all but a shoe-in. I'd already negotiated with Giacomo that should the position come along, I would direct all of my extenuating circumstances and enterprises in their direction so that they could remain the strong right hand of our Hakata brethren. They would have access to and be able to speak through Everett.
This Giacomo, whatever?
Yes, Giacomo. Jack. You may have heard of them.
I've heard the name pretty splashy, but I haven't had the pleasure of his presence.
More's the pity.
And he was willing to, I'm assuming he was a contender and was willing to step aside as long as we allowed him to play the power games?
She is the only eligible contender. She's been being trained by View and Felix for the last 2 decades to assume the very next senator's seat. There is no one in the entirety of Thornton Townships or the near outlying south suburbs who would ever consider anyone else but Jack.
And she was willing to step aside for Everett.
Yes.
That must have been a serious negotiation. I applaud that effort.
When View displayed their ability to properly manipulate Geneva openly and directly, and were backed by Felix and their control of the many religious orders throughout Dalton, I set into a contingency plan to ensure that Everett would assume the seat so that we, the Chantry Pyramid, could set our tenterhooks into the full assumption of the Senate.
That is a masterful stroke. Politically speaking, I couldn't even see that being possible. I don't know much about Jack or where she's from, but I can't imagine that wasn't a cheap or easy deal to work out.
It was not, and value was already paid. How much are you aware of in regards to the Ash Finders?
The Ash Finders?
Yes.
They're not in my purview.
Good.
I've been dealing with Kine for so long, hunting down errant husbands and such. This current week has been invigorating.
That is a tragedy. But good for you that you have not associated with the Ash Finders. They are a church within the church. They are an entity unto themselves, and they cross nearly every boundary of our society. They have members and addicts all throughout our community. They have the ability to grant the half-born, thin blood, nearly full-blooded kindred abilities.
They're able to juice the dusk?
Yes, temporarily. And
That's scary. I mean,
not so much. Control the supply. You control those who become addicted to it.
yeah, but I mean, stepping away from the politics of control and whatever, the Duskborn have a lot of animosity that they've built up, and you get the right cult leader among them, they could turn that against us in a real hurry. It's like the old days when the Tower would try to use the theists against the rebels.
And we still do, as best as possible, because we don't notify them that they are in operation, and we take our time, and we disappear, allowing the only ones left to be those we wish destroyed.
I've always been leery of the devil's advocate on that one. The enemy of my enemy is not my friend.
No, it's just a lesser enemy, a manageable one. Allow them to find whatever targets they wish by removing everything that matters to us, so that all that is left when they sweep an area are the enemies that are to be destroyed. No interaction, no engagement. When we notice they swoop into an area, we lay low. We vacate the premises so that all they might find
are the people we want them to find.
Correct.
I understand the theory, but it always makes me nervous to usher in a bunch of people with flamethrowers, even if I'm hiding in a really deep hole.
There's nothing to fear with it. In that regard, we have our various associates spread throughout the ranks and working on grabbing more control of them as we speak. But I don't want to speak above your station and share too much, because a little knowledge is a very dangerous thing in this regard.
Only tell me what I need to know, please. I don't want to be involved in higher chantry functions that I'm not prepared for.
We need to make it very difficult for Giacomo to maintain any semblance of control once they attain the Senate seat. Not out of revenge, out of lost value. Giacomo cannot have that seat.
This Giacomo person, is there anything more you could tell me about him? Is he...
She is the strong right hand of Felix, secretly, completely in league with View. Those two, despite their disparate stations in the Senate, are in fact one voice. She is their sword.
She is their sword?
Yes.
So she's the heavy hand behind the Velvet Voices. Because I live in a hole, but the hole isn't that deep. And those two, I won't lie, spook me. They remind me of kingpins, but not in the area of, like in my old life, I would not ascribe them to being drug dealers. They would be more flesh peddlers. They would definitely be human traffickers.
They are.
And the psychology they use of talking at the same time is a distraction to anyone dealing with them.
You are far more learned than I believed. I may have to take a care with you. But yes, they are master manipulators. They sow discord. They reap doubt as you and I drink blood from the kind. They slowly work through mitigating any of your positive connections. They put what you love at risk and co-opt you to their way of thinking by exploiting the weakness they create in you, all while on the surface seeming to be nothing more than spiritual advisors. Once they get their hooks into you, it is almost impossible to free yourself. Your few chances of doing so lie in dancing to the tune of Giacomo.
So, Giacomo herself, I hate to be the nuts and bolts guy in the much more artistic art that is Kindred Interaction, but Giacomo doesn't sound like the kind of person that is a manipulator. So where did they recruit her from? Like what clan is she coming out of? What area of influence is she excited about?
Isn't it obvious? She does their evil so that her patrician sisterhood is able to flourish. She is very much one of the Blue Bloods. She is one of the few Blue Bloods in the South Suburbs, and the only one who holds more power than one would suspect.
You talked a Blue Blood into seceding power to a premier?
Yes.
My respect for you has gained like 4,000%. I have never seen a Tremere or a Ventru give up power of any level, at any point.
It helps knowing the pressure points. It helps knowing where all of the bodies are buried. And it very much helps that all of those that are extremely valuable to Giacomo are hidden from everyone save me.
I would like to mention at this point that my occult studies have moved ahead a little bit.
Excellent.
So, and Seth takes out his plasma lighter at this point and lights a cigarette because he's trying to process and he doesn't have a donut right now. So we have managed to persuade, extort, prevail on a Blue Blood to step aside for Everett, but Everett's fortunate end in the course of what I'm seeing more and more as a goose chase, a lethal goose chase through Riverdale and Dalton. And he was one of the victims of that fatal aspect.
Unfortunately, yes. He fell into a snare by revealing too much of the truths we understood in front of Geneva and Mitchell. So he was part of the party sent for a diplomatic manipulation.
It looks like everything that I'm seeing, everything that I've been able to put together, it was a suicidal mission. It was designed from the outset. There were lupine, there were sash agents, there's a lot of crosstalk about enemies of the kindred. I can't tell you for an absolute certainty which group is responsible for the act, but I can tell you that the coterie as it existed whenever it was a member of it was designed to fall into a trap.
I'd feared as much. I was hoping that was not the case. We have allies in Milwaukee. We have a small chantry in Milwaukee. I'd already begun reaching out to them for his arrival. Unfortunately, they haven't seen him and had not seen him.
From what I was able to get from Dia, she was brought into this project, this Dalton project, whatever the ultimate outcome is meant to be. She was brought in at the point of extreme pressure, where the pieces that led to Everett's passing were already in place. Most of the members of the coterie that exist now are not aware of or part of what was going on before when Everett fell. I mean, me and Frost, we're brand new. Bob, totally new. Dia brought in at the last second right before bad things happened. It sounds like somebody is shaking the Etch-a-Sketch. There was mistakes made, people died, people ran away. And now they're trying to rebuild whatever their original plan was. And I think it's all coming to a head at one point. With the fall of Nicole, it's another piece in the puzzle, and it links back to Everett's passing. We've got Lupines assumed to be involved with him. We've got Lupines assumed to be involved with Nicole. It may be, I mean, there are several ways to look at it. Though, me being the suspicious bastard that I am, you talked a venture out of power. I don't know how long that kind of deal holds. Maybe the venture decided that they didn't want to share power, so they wanted to make Dia look bad and weaken her position and make the slot open up all at the same time. That's possible. The other aspect is we have Sash involvement, not overt, like what I'm hearing out of Gary is just insane. Explosions and trucks and guys with machine guns. That's not where we're getting here. I'm getting little tiny hints that the theists, maybe the Judes, maybe the Sash are involved in trying to hide what they're doing. But either way, anyway, it's all coming together and it's making Dalton look horrible.
I can't say that is not troubling. And yes, unfortunately, our Regent in Gary is in need of assistance. But that's a matter for another time. I never liked the grasping fool attempting to do something otherwise on his own instead of following along. But I do wish them well. And perhaps if we can properly stage a rescue, they'll be in our debt. But until the details are worked out, it is best to allow them to fend for themselves.
Right now, there are problems enough with Dalton, Riverdale, and Milwaukee. I figure Gary can hold its own for a couple of weeks.
Or a year and a day. I really do not enjoy Regent Rose. There's a certain pretension about him. Forgive me.
The only mention I've had of him is you saying he might have training available for me. Other than that,
he is skilled. He is very much skilled, and I was attempted to reach out to him. Unfortunately, the troubles are far more than we were led to believe.
Well, the one time I drove past Gary, something was on fire, and the next time I drove past Gary, something exploded. So I'm assuming they have all the problems they can handle. So I'm quite willing to focus on the problems closer to home.
Excellent. We have leverage against Jack, and there's not much in this grand scheme of things, considering that they are prepared to ascend to the Senate seat, so we would need a distracting agent to add pressure. We need to keep them as diverted and unfocused as possible, which would give us an opportunity to properly groom Dia into our way of thinking. Without Nicole, she should be pliable, or more pliable.
I think that would require less steering than you might imagine. Dia is pretty close to the course that I imagine Riverdale and Dalton Chantries would want us to go in a societal way. I mean,
yes, there is that hope, and Nicole was a friend of the Chantry. However, she also was as untrustworthy as all of the others of that ilk. There is a decided penchant for the melodrama that is unavoidable.
It is unavoidable, and trust me, I have been crying a little on the inside for the amount that I'm looking forward to spending on clothes and decorations and what have you, to deal with the fact that I'm in the company of roses so much now.
I will have to put you in contact with the tailor, lovely gentleman from New Orleans. One of the few reasons why the city hasn't been destroyed. Jack.
So, what do we want to do about Jack? What is our end game with him or her at this point?
knowing that they are connected with the Ash Finders and knowing their connection with Naomi, it would behoove us to sow a small bit of discord between View, Felix, and Jack. The two of them, if they turn their sights on their loyal right hand, would keep them off balance as well, giving us an opportunity to properly groom Dia and to exert some small pressure on Mitchell. Get Mitchell and the Voivod at odds. We will be separating Geneva's allies on the Senate and dividing their focus so that we, fortunately, will move towards an end game of seizing proper full control without changing the puppet in charge. This was the end goal for having 2 seats on the Senate. We would be able to break any tie in our favor. We would be able to properly, if having given the correct time we needed, to get our tenterhooks more fully into all of the other senators. Everett's death, Everett's destruction. Everett's destruction is an unavoidable inciting incident. We must move faster. We must enact a more direct course of dissension. I'm not sure if you are aware, but Golgotha Chantry has had a jailbreak. All of the spirits and dark entities that were kept there are now released.
I don't even want to hear the inventory of what might be loose right now then.
Yes, the Prime Chantry and most of their higher circled members are set on course to capture, collect, or destroy those entities that have been released. Unfortunately, with them so preoccupied and with those forces unleashed, View and Felix, through the nature of their blood, will have grown in strength, grown in the tools available to them. And we must ensure that they don't turn those tools on us or those remaining of value to us. And so the linchpin, the lead domino, so that we can properly sow dissension, giving us an opportunity to seize control, is Giacomo. Their ties across the board, their thus far success in impressing upon the others their usefulness, their feather in View and Felix's cap as a success story must be brought to an end. Tomorrow is their ascension, and we have until then to properly plan and initiate.
So we need to poison the well that is Giacomo's influence.
Yes.
In such a way that Felix and company, if they take from that well of influence, they'll be poisoned as well. So they'll choose not to be involved in it.
Yes.
And this is the Naomi I know of that is already a sitting Ventru.
Yes, she is one of those, unfortunately, much like Senator Wainwright, who exists in a multiplicity of worlds at once. Naomi still has not left the patricians of Chicago, and thus remains control of various sites there, but holds an actual position of power here.
So she has ties back to the main tower, as well as a seat at the table in the free world of Dalton.
Yes, which makes her extraordinarily dangerous.
And she's also a blue blood?
Yes.
Oh, sweet mother of God. So she's sitting pretty, and she's with Jack.
I suspect as much. After all, blood calls to blood. And despite all of the associations and direct tutelage of View and Felix, I am positive that those two are working in concert, not just aligned in protecting the women of this area.
Well, 2 blue bloods in Dalton are not going to be strangers to each other. And their power paradigm is loosely associated to our own. So if she's a senator, the lesser, Jack, answers to Naomi.
Yes, almost assuredly, especially being as their retainers and resources are very much about protecting and saving the wayward women and children of Thornton Township.
So, and Naomi would like lead paint to have a second blue blood as a direct advisor to the Dom.
Yes.
So we try to poison that well. We make Jack look bad somehow, or make their political aspirations untenable, unpalatable to Dalton.
Yes. I know that there's a meeting between them, View, and Felix tomorrow before the Ascension, hours in advance, just shortly after sunset, so that they have an opportunity to prepare. It's standard operating procedure at this point, and one which we will interrupt. Do you know of the Siren's Call ritual?
I've read loosely, left-handedly about it, but it's well beyond my skill set.
Not as much as you believe. It is a sharing of the senses, and the linking of the minds. It sows doubt and paranoia, and with, I believe, if we have a strong enough anchor to use as a battery, we will in fact be able to focus laser-like and cause the paranoia and doubt to grow so that there will be a loss of control during the Ascension.
So try to get Jack twisted right before her supposed promotion, so she loses control in front of everyone at the event.
Yes.
That could work. Among blue bloods, that would be a loss of face they'd take decades to come back from.
Yes. And now that you have an understanding as to the scope, what we need from you, your ability to find, sneak, and your ability to skulk between the shadows, we need you to capture a minimum 2 Dustborn, 2 Thin Blood, 2 Broken Kindred, so that we can use them and their blood as anchor for the ritual. Is this within your capability?
I can definitely sneak up on them, as long as I'm given a couple of clues as where to start. But I think you underestimate their willingness to be a part of this. There's been rumors, and I won't say we're attached to them. I won't even claim to know Tower, Rebel, Anarch, who might be responsible, but there are rumors out there that the Dustborn have taken serious hits in the recent past. And I think that finding a couple of Dustborn that would be willing to donate to the fight and kick the power structure in the face might not be as hard as we think.
Really?
Well, you put a bunch of rats in a bucket and then pour hot water on them, a couple of the rats are going to try to bite you.
So, our summation is that if we were to politely reach out and explain ourselves in a way that makes us the protagonist here, they will join our cause against a mutual enemy.
Absolutely. If we can tie or pretend to tie Jack and her actions in the recent past to the rumored cullings that I've heard whispered about, I think we could convince 2 or 3 of them to donate to the need. Now, this donation, is it a fatal level donation? Because that would require a lot more subterfuge on the back end.
We can just decide not to share that much information with them, but yes, it would be a permanent anchoring for this ritual. And so long as they remain this side of permanent, true, final death, we would be able to allow the paranoia and the doubt to grow exponentially day after day, year after year.
So we could trigger Jack for as long as we could keep the dusk alive in the center of the ritual.
Yes.
I think I have the context to try to pull that off. We just need a few of them.
2. The more, the better, of course.
If it's just me going in, they won't feel attacked. And once we separate what we need, we'll have the ability to do whatever we want.
Yes, I am all for this. This is an excellent idea. But I do have to ask, how well versed are you with the area?
Riverdale more than Dalton, but both areas I've driven extensively.
Excellent. So you are not deaf, dumb, and blind to what should and could be available to us. Not far from here is one of the many hundreds of churches that Dalton and Riverdale is party to. In that church, there are known Dustborn who frequent and are otherwise members. Perhaps if you were to approach this church and make your way inside, we might be able to make the acquaintance of and lure a few.
Absolutely. I have a much softer touch than some of our other options. Sending in like Bob and Frost would be effective, but loud. I think I can get in much more quietly.
Excellent. Don't think ill of me, but I really don't care how messy this must be. We must have 2 bodies to use as anchors.
And the fact that they're Duskborn is important.
There's this in a half state, a broken simulacrum of being truly undead.
So that feeds the ritual for the paranoia aspect.
Yes, neither this nor that, but both at once, competing endlessly.
I think I can make this work. I think I can find a couple. It will burn a bridge. I mean, my face will be persona non grata after this, unless the 2 survive.
Well, if we're going to burn bridges, let's make sure that a few of our enemies are on them. And with that, he produces a cigarette case. Doesn't seem like much. It's just a standard cigarette case that you've seen that has fallen out of style. And that now, if you were to see one, it'd probably be used as a business card holder or a wallet. But this is engraved. This cigarette case is engraved with a message. And it is, while the smoke has ended, may all your nights be. And there's nothing else there except for to Lothair.
To Lothair?
Lothair. Lothaire.
This looks old.
It is. I obtained it through one of our last parties with Nicole and her loose assortment of sensates and artistes. This particular item is from one of the rabble of Riverdale.
Does it have specific meaning to the task at hand?
I'm sure that if things were to go sideways, that they would believe, well, based on the information left, that it would be at the behest of someone or something from Riverdale. Well, there is a fairly well-known member of the Sensates on the party circuit. Very upstanding gentleman, actually. However, if they are the believed enemy, and they are unknown to themselves as enemies, they would respond vociferously and violently towards any Dustborn or kindred that seeks to attack them. So you leave.
Go pear-shaped. Leave this behind as a clue, leading them to elsewhere.
Yes.
I'm liking this thinking.
And with Lothair being the right hand of one of the many barons of Riverdale, it will keep them off balance enough. If the dustborn, yes. If everyone's looking elsewhere, no one will be looking at us, which is the final goal of it all, so that when we seize actual control, we are able to properly puppet Geneva. No one will be the wiser. Our timetable, unfortunately, is shorter than we would like. However, I believe in your execution in obtaining that which we need so that we can initiate and incite all of the further steps.
I think that's going to be very possible. And Seth at this point takes a moment to transfer cigarettes from his pack into the cigarette case. So he has it on his person and is using it now. So he's used to it when he gets to where he's going.
Excellent. And I know that the night is short and you have much to do before the sunrise, which is far too soon, but it would be better if we begin this evening, if we wrap up things before the sun draws our evening to a close.
Oh, I absolutely agree. There's too much going on tomorrow for us to try to stuff it all in before things come to a head.
Yes, indeed. As your cover story for initiating contact, the Dustborn have been known to peddle, sell, occasionally gift blood against all other ties of the circulatory system and the blood czar, and unfortunately our very own Blakeney, who has on multiple attempts tried to make a foray into the market.
Well, I'm a known bagger because, well, I'm too busy to hunt most days.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I think I can pull that off fairly efficiently. I even have a thermos in the car, so I have all the accoutrement and things that I need that will sell the idea.
Excellent. The church that you'll be heading to, are you aware as to the name of it? It is just off of Leyden and 138th. It is the only cathedral actually there.
The Oakland, that's right outside the edge. That would make sense.
It is the In His Presence Life Center. That entire facility of buildings are part of their structure. It is one of the few non-Hakata churches and cathedrals in the area.
I can find my way there pretty easily from here.
Excellent. We will convene. You will need a vehicle or use their vehicle, preferably their vehicle. Are you aware as to Baron McGillen's barony?
Baron McGillen's? I haven't had to work in that area yet.
Excellent. Well, do you know where the North Riverside Small Diamond facility is?
I can find it.
Excellent. I maintain a laboratory in the area. Baron McEwen is a friend to the Chantry.
Is this the same sanctum that you told me to visit you on in the north side of Riverside? But
yes.
Rivers Bend?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely know where that is. I've mapped getting there 2 or 3 different ways.
Excellent. You can always use the river. Just notify me if you're coming by river. We have various security measures in place.
I will hope that I can avoid that, but if the river becomes necessary, I will definitely let you know.
Excellent. I will head there now in, let's say, 2 hours for you to obtain at the outside.
Well, if I can't talk him into it in 2 hours, I'm not going to be able to talk him into it in 2 days.
Excellent. 2 hours it is then. And with that, he turns back to the older gentleman who you vaguely recognize as a urban legend. There's a legend that there is a human that has had the unmitigated wherewithal to even stand down several angry kindred. He's known as the Griot, and that most assuredly is probably who James was speaking with. James bids his adieu and heads out of the door, leaving you with the cigarette pack, the information that you've all discussed, and the Griot, who looks around and his old white hair and beard seemingly completely out of place in this establishment. But all the same, the bartender moves over and refills his drink without asking, touches his hand, and gets back to cleaning the rest of the bar.
Seth throws down a $5 tip for the Griot's drink and heads to his car.
Making your way to the church, you realize how small and yet how disparate Dalton is. It is strangely a peaceful drive from the Harmony there. It's not far. It never really is. Nothing's ever that far from anywhere in Dalton. It is a little bit interesting to have had it verified your suspicion as to why there were so many churches and religious organizations in Dalton. The fact that they are supported by the Hecata, and if rumors are to be believed, there's a non-interference pact between not just the tower, but the rabble and the Hecata.
Peace is a full-time job. You gotta fight for it, I guess.
It is. Unfortunately, without Seth being having a military outlook on things and that basic understanding of siege tactics, it doesn't make much sense for them to have so many different places to be contacted. It seems like a weakness, like spreading themselves too thin. However, if Seth had the understanding of why the U.S. and various other countries set up so many different bases, it would make sense as to what they're actually doing and what they're launching. They can't really do it in Chicago directly or any officially recognized tower city, but by having so many places, so many bases so close within striking distance, the truth makes itself all the more obvious.
Like the web of lookouts that drug users use in their own neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You can see one lookout, but you can't see them all.
And as you get to the church facility, you realize that this location is perfect. It is right at the edge of recognized domain. It's far too close to actually all real power in Dalton, but further enough away that if one were to choose, you could easily turn a blind eye and it wouldn't be a problem. You can always act on it if you chose and ignore it until it became a problem.
Yep. So, as I get to the Oakland compound, I find a parking place that puts my car at the edge of being in a bad place. I'm not going to park it in the center of the parking lot where they have all kinds of avenues. I'll put it on the edge of the parking spot where I still look vulnerable, but I myself, in my head, have escape routes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to look like a buyer, but I don't want to look like a noob.
It doesn't take long before you catch notice of one of the faces that you've seen entering and exiting a multiplicity of times this evening. You see a long, tall, strange man whose closest resemblance is that of Abraham Lincoln watching from one of the doorways, and then he disappears back inside. Then you see another few faces, and finally a van arrives, and stepping out of it, a good pick for you. I did not crop one. And
you're back.
Okay.
I'm back.
Welcome back. If you look there I'll just put it in your on the server. This gentleman is arguing. Well, not arguing, but politely and vociferously talking to the gentleman that you saw was going to approach you. And he snatches at the cooler in the man's hand and walks directly over to you. It is clear from the set of his shoulders and how wide he is that there's a musculature there born of actual hard labor, not the streamlined and well-manicured physicality of a bodybuilder or modern fitness model. This is the musculature of a person who's worked hard and long. And based on his age or physical age, you can tell that it was a lifetime of actual work. There's a certain calm power in him as he moves closer.
Okay, just give me a feel for the area. It's late at night, dark, and fairly quiet.
Yes.
I'm going to use heightened senses to see what I can see of this man, because I don't want to, broach a subject, find out, he's an accountant. So I'm looking for, because Dustborn are even harder to tell apart.
Yes.
So I'm looking for a lack of vitality, lack of breathing, lack of heartbeat in the veins in the neck. Any hints that I might be in the right place?
Those signs aren't there. However, it is clear from his look that his focus on you is one of he's tired. He has done this or watched others do this repeatedly, and his argument at the doorway seems to be sure proof that he is of your world.
Okay. Well, at that point, before he can speak, I'm going to turn off heightened senses because I don't want to blow out my eardrums.
He gets to your window and raises a brow. My friend, I am sure that you are here for a very good reason. I believe I may have an idea as to what that reason may be.
It is, unfortunately, a very important reason. And it may be 2 or 3 reasons, but the most pressing is, I think you've guessed it.
Yes, there is a certain need about you, and the fact that you have not roused the strength of your blood to seem human leads me in one specific direction.
Well, I decided that honesty is the best policy in this. I find myself between sources, as it were, and my tastes don't lend themselves to running around at night. Not to mention, I have things to do, and kind of quick.
He looks down as if he's just weary, and he opens the cooler, takes a look inside, and closes it back. I understand that there's quite a bit of profit to be made in the exchanging of blood. I'm sorry to tell you that must end here. Cannot come back again for more. Those individuals that you were doing business with, I am going to ensure that they are no longer here. And because of the potential risk to yourself and the world around you, and he takes a cooler and he sits it inside the car on your lap. I understand that normally it is $1,500 per bag. There are 6 bags there. You have no payment to make, my friend.
Well, I won't lie and say this is not massively surprising. And I completely understand your stance. My name is McClarian, by the way.
McClarian, my name is Eric. I am one of the unofficial leaders here, and many of our associates have decided that the criminality is how they shall ensure their continued existence. I have come to the understanding that that may not be the best course of action for them or for us as a whole. If you would like to be our friend, would like to be an associate, you are more than welcome to do so. I would prefer this very much.
Well, Eric.
Yes.
My need is real, but I didn't just come for this. I've heard rumors of what's been happening among your group, your coterie. I'm sorry, I must plead ignorance of what you call yourselves as a whole.
We are the children of the dusk.
But the rumors are that the dusk are facing a real adversary, and in the course of my work, I've come into some information that may be of use to you. And if you want to take advantage of that information, members of my group are in a position where we would want to help you.
I see. And what might your group be, my friend?
Well, we're called the Pyramid, amongst ourselves, but Tremere is the generally accepted term.
Yes. And are you an associate of Miss Rains, or is this a separate attempt to make connection with us?
Oh, this is completely separate. This is something that I have brought to the attention of my leaders, and they have said, this is important information, and while we are helping them, we will also be helping ourselves. Do not think this is a gift. This is an exchange, and there is no criminality involved in it. Just to clear that board right off the nut. I'm not asking you to smuggle or deal or steal or kill or any of that stuff.
Really?
No. This would be my group, more specifically, my direct authority, using members of your group to foul someone we have found has been involved in the things that have happened to your group. And like I said, I've only heard rumors, but even if half the rumors are true, it is horrendous.
I see. Well, I believe this is maybe something we should not discuss here. But we have friends and associates in our company just yet. If you bear with me a second, I will have my driver follow you so that we can discuss this elsewhere.
Yeah, wherever you'd like. And at this point, he takes out his cigarette case, holds it in his hand for a second, pops it open, takes one out, closes it so that the message is very visible, and taps out a cigarette, and then puts it in his mouth and lights it with the electric lighter.
Eric nods and moves away from the car. Hey, before he even makes it inside, there's a appears, and the gentleman who appears, while Eric looks solid and stocky and muscle earned from hard work, Yaroslav is a gentleman who looks exactly as you would imagine a bear if given human form. His big bushy beard and slick back hair barely hiding the consistent and constant aggression of his world. There's some exchanging of words, and then Yaroslav and Eric move towards your car. Instead of taking one of our vehicles, perhaps we can hitch a ride with you, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Eric moves
front seat.
Eric moves around to the shotgun seat, and Yaroslav slides into your car behind, or your truck behind you, sitting directly behind the driver.
At which point, I smile as I activate blood potency, because they can suck it. Nobody gets behind me where I can't take a hit. Hold on. Gotta make sure I do this right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, happy day.
Oh, no.
Oh, and I have to do this. Didn't even cost me a blood pool.
Your beast does not rise to the occasion, though your blood thickens. It doesn't cause you to flex. It doesn't cause any immediate outward signs, but it is as if suddenly you are warm all over, as if the heat of the sun itself has settled inside your skin.
I work very hard not to physically flex out when I do that. Normally, it would be in the middle of a fight and it wouldn't matter, but in this cramped quarters, I work very hard not to flex myself.
You have taken hold of a live wire and you're rigid, sort of jumping and jerking and bouncing and stretching the muscles to feel the power ebb and move through you, almost as if you have a natural living pulse. It does require some effort. It takes you a second. It's like getting a good, more fresh start of the day cigarette smoked to the perfect point of this slowly wafting on the wind. It fills your lungs with that very real touch of nicotine, letting you know that the day will suck, but you'll survive it.
So, where am I driving to? Which building? Or are we in for a long ride?
No, my friend. We are at your disposal. You would like to speak? We would like to listen.
Oh, the car makes it perfectly good. And to be clear, this is like a 96 Chevy. It is a converted police car. The only thing that doesn't suck is the engine. So like the shit in the roof is coming down a little. The doors, once in a while you have to slam it twice to make it close. The radio is still an AM/FM radio, but the engine is a V8 long block. It's a fucking monster. Well, I was hoping to talk to you in more formal digs, but I can present myself here. The bottom line is that we have discovered there is a group within Dalton, actually a couple of people within Dalton, that seems to be inanimous to your group. And they have enlisted the aid of the Ventru within Dalton to try to make your lives more difficult, make the lives of your hunters easier. So since I had to eat anyway, I figured I'd come by at the behest of my authority and present you this name, this person, and offer you the opportunity as a group to deal him a blow or deal her a blow to make her life more difficult, as she is in line to gain exponentially more power within the city of Dalton.
Is this the person responsible for the death of our friend Nicole?
It may well. This person is looking to take Nicole's place, and the person feeding her into this position would very much like to see this person advance. So, I mean, I don't have a smoking gun on this, and I won't claim without weeks of investigation that I would be able to find it. But kindred being who kindred are, most people get promotion when somebody else gets let out feet first. I mean, obviously with your tenuous position here, you know more directly about the politics of Dalton. There is a person, her name is Giacomo, known as Jack, I assume. And her authority is the Senator Naomi. But she's also being groomed by Felix and Felix's other half. And they would very much like to see them move up in power. But the information I have says that Jack is not directly involved with what happened to the Dusk, but in favor of and helping those people who are responsible.
Eric looks back at Yaroslav. There's not much speech. In fact, there's none. There's far too much breathing in your car for you, because the only other person who's been in your car, and usually only his driver, Frost. But these two actually breathe.
Right.
There's a hint of sweat in the air coming from behind you. And there's a bit of silent communication between them. And Eric nods his head. Said, my friend, we are few things if not loyal to our friends and us. And we have been haunted and hunted by kindred for far longer than most would ever bother to expect. If this person, Giacomo, this person, Jack, the dealer, as we know them, is responsible or connected with the death of our friend Nicole, there is nothing that we will not do to seek vengeance. What would you have of us?
I don't know, because, like I said, I have to plead ignorance of the Dusk and their abilities and what your knowledge is outside of the Dusk. But I'm a member of the Tremere, and we are hermetic magicians from way back, and blood magicians for the last 400, 500, 600 years. We have ways of making Jack's life impossible, but it requires blood. Our magic now that we have turned and become kindred, our magic requires blood. And my authority wanted to know if driving Jack mad when she was trying to take power in front of God only knows how many kindred would interest you, and whether you would have members of your group that would be willing to partake in the ritual that would cause that to happen. It would, in face, completely torpedo any hope that she had for gaining power. It would also push forward a friend of mine, and this is separate from my authority. My authority doesn't know that I care about this. It would push ahead the chosen successor of Nicole, a kindred called Dia, to take her place. And I don't know how close you were with Dia or how close you were with Nicole, but Dia and Nicole were of a mind. And I have a firm live and let live policy, so I'm of a mind to let the dusk be the dusk.
Would you be so kind as to roll your charisma and persuasion +1?
I can certainly try. Oh, thank God. That could have gone horribly wrong.
Nah, it's not that bad. You got your successes. Look at that.
Yeah, but look at the big, ugly skull. That scared me for a minute.
Well, it's a good thing you don't have imploding ones to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad I ate before I came here.
There is some incredulity on their faces, but it is clear. And the sad thing is that Seth has seen this a multiplicity of times before over the course of his life, both living and dead. There is an enmity and a wish for vengeance, a chance to lash out and vent that rage has been built up by those who have been abused by a system, not just the system, but a system. As if painting on a cop's car is the defining moment of vengeance, or as much as they can claim. As if breaking a window somehow balances at least a small portion of all the crimes that they've been victim to. As if spitting on a politician or a senator somehow strikes a blow that makes everything else that follows worth it. It is that need to avenge the wrongs by any and every means possible. And Eric closes his eyes, inhales, and looks at you. When can we begin this ritual?
My authority is setting up the ritual right now. He's expecting me in less than an hour. It's just a straight drive up Lincoln Ave to the north side of Riverdale, near the river's turn.
Very well. Let's go.
This is painful. I don't want to lie to you. This will be a painful thing.
My life thus far has been pain. I have watched the death of many friends, allies, and chosen family. If this will help right even just one of the lives recently lost, if this will help right,
I want you to understand what the outcome will be. What price? You understand the price, it seems to me, but I want you to understand the outcome, so you know that the price is worth it. You will see the fall of a potential senator, possibly the fall of a sitting senator. You will see the crippling of the Ventru within Dalton, who are probably the biggest dusk hunters on the face of this earth. And you will see the ascension, hopefully, of my friend Dia to take up the mantle of Nicole, who Nicole personally groomed for that position. That is what is on the table on my side. On your side, there will be pain. The two that come with me will feel every bit of what Jack feels.
You're stronger mentally than that. Lead the way, my friend. We will destroy this person mentally. We will inflict all of the pain we have suffered thus far. We will strike a blow, and hopefully the first of many. I am tired. I am possessed by vengeance, and I will have my blood. Not merely just this, so much more. So
that mindset will feed the ritual all the more. If you can keep that as your central thought, it will make the ritual that much more powerful. As I pull out onto Lincoln Avenue and head into Riverdale.
Should we still kind of just go ahead and roll wits plus occult for me, please?
Maybe. Hold on. Wits. Okay.
As you ease into James's property, and you realize that his is not the only property, his is not the only esoteric, preternatural, supernatural laboratory, as he calls this particular private sanctum in the vicinity. And it is only once you realize that Baron McEwen may very well be more than they let on, or have some understanding as to things. The phrasing of what Eric shared with you brings back to the very conversation you had with James before you set out on this quest. There are beings and spirits released from capture of the Golgotha Chantry, and you all must move quickly before they take root, strengthening those who delve and deal with necromantic sources such as the Hekata, specifically the Hekata of Dalton. And there is a clear battle happening within Eric. He initially approached you to stop all criminality, but is so possessed of a need for vengeance that your mind keeps circling back to that exact phrasing. Spirits and other planar beings don't lie. They believe in the honor of a deal to all very true fine print detail. They don't lie. In fact, they usually obfuscate what they are by sharing truth in the most unexpected of moments. And as you all walk into the sanctum and realize that it is a full-fledged, actual personal chantry, not just a sanctum, that thought hits with a full-force megaton effect. So with that supposition sitting there before him, what if it is anything the Seth relay, share, verse about to verify?
Well, as we approach, because I haven't actually been to the sanctum yet, this is my first time here, I am going to go with heightened senses until somebody starts really trying to talk directly to me, and look around. Because now my paranoia is jacked up to 4,000%.
Oh, there are certain things that, even prepared as one does for piercing the veil, even prepared as one does for having the connective worlds revealed, that one is never prepared for. And one of those things that most people are never prepared for, even knowing that they are possible and probable, the amount of wards layered and laced about the property, short of an effective spiritual nuke, nothing that James decides should not enter would enter onto this property. It's one of the few moments of approaching a castle prepared for a 5-year siege with the drawbridge down. This place is absolutely radioactive in regards to the defenses it has. There are spirits gnawing at the very ramparts of the place. There are near lupine-like shadows splitting across the space between James's sanctum and Baron McEwen's factory. There is a supernatural telephone wire basically connecting the two places, forming a circuit of some sort. You also see that those lines reach out into the distance, some heading north, some heading west, some heading east, and all of them convening in one huge line heading south, diving into the ground. And there's crackling black energy moving all about the wards and all over those lines. But despite all of that power, all of that energy, unlike in other places, there aren't any spirits of the dead. These are beings that never have been in this world. These are not the souls of the damned, of the lost, which in and of itself is an oddity, especially when it comes to chantries. There are sacrifices made in consecrating or deconsecrating every chantry. There are circles of protection that require the blood of the living or the almost living. Yet there's not one soul from a living entity anywhere near here.
At this point, I'm getting out of the car and I'm seeing this train wreck of hints and allegations of wards and protections. I turn to Eric and go, we need to get inside quickly, but you need to follow me exactly. There are parts of this building that will attack you.
Very well, my friend, lead the way.
I try to weave a path through. Now, I'm assuming James is expecting us. So there's a path, a central path, that'll get us from point A to point B fairly well. But I don't touch any doors unless I have to. I don't touch any walls unless I have to. And I lead Eric and the bear inside as fast as humanly, or as fast as kindredly possible.
It's like swimming with a shark, and not just any shark. It's like swimming with Megalodon. You know that even though you are in a cage and that you will be safe, that the very idea of placing your hands outside the cage, you know, will result in your immediate, complete, and total dismemberment. And it doesn't help that those beings, that those creatures, that those predators, if they so chose, could in fact swallow not only the cage, but the boat that you use to dive with. Moving further in, you realize that James is not here alone. There are roughly about 4 or 5 people, or you think that there are people. There is a vitality of life about them, but as you get close enough for them to actually offer to take your coat, asking for refreshments, there is no light of any soul. There is no light behind their eyes. They are completely empty. They are voids into nothingness. And not the nothingness where you can see the occasional screaming, tormenting soul. No, this is an endless, black, nebulous thing that doesn't end. And is not the smoky, wispy touch of oblivion or the Shadowlands. No, this is just a void into the nothing. The eye of the storm, the calm of all things end.
Seth walks the bear and Eric up to James, trying to ignore the Renfields that are obviously surrounding them. Master Rich, I present to you Eric, and I'm gonna fuck this name up so bad. Yaroslav, yes.
Yaroslav. It is good to see you, gentlemen. Right this way. We have aperitifs. Does anyone need a bite to eat, a drink? And with his hands clasped behind his back, as you would expect for some minor lord or effete gentleman of years past, it is beneath your notice initially with the touch of the other about you, but your cop senses registers danger. Your senses that were honed over several decades of pursuing criminals in your breathing days start screaming at you. Eric and Yaroslav look at each other. Mr. Rich, it is a pleasure to meet you. I understand that this may be very taxing, so it would be best if perhaps you have an aperitif, my friend. Something to bolster ourselves. Rich removes his left hand and points towards the far wall. My associates will ensure your replenishment if you'll step right there. And as Eric slides past him and Yaroslav falls in line, James moves far faster than you have ever seen him move. He blurs into nothing and his right hand flashes out, the stake driving itself completely home through Yaroslav's massive back. And with unerring aim, the large man begins falling. Out of instinct more than anything else, you can tell that Eric whirls to catch Yaroslav in time for the soulless ones to capture him, holding him prone. And the other stake at James's back that he has just tucked beneath the band, he draws out and hands to you. I did inform you that I need your help. Would you be so kind?
Fuck. Now, the 3 or 4 Renfields are holding Eric to the ground.
Yep.
I take the stake. I walk over to Eric. He's prone on the ground. Yaroslav is already down. And I look down and I look directly in Eric's eyes. Just know that whatever happens, it will be for the good of the Dusk and for the good of Dalton. And I stab it right through his fucking heart.
As the stake drives home, it's as if you've touched your tongue to a battery. Realize that the ritual had already begun and that you are now connected, you and James, in the driver's seat of where this energy is being directed. Over the course of the next 2 hours before sunrise, there is an immediate understanding as to just how deeply Giacomo has embedded themselves into the fabric of Dalton, operating behind the scenes just beneath notice, moving from one source to the next, all for the goal of protecting what they feel is theirs, all for the goal of bettering, all for the use of a certain criminality to further their knight-erranthood, for protecting their extended family, protecting their clan, for protecting their sex, for making sure that the homeless are as well taken care of as possible, considering that there was a ripper preying upon them, to ensure that the loose, unaligned gangs from Gary meet their retribution. You, through the touch of the ritual, are able to experience the average day, at least the average mental day. All of the deals made, all of the very carefully balanced wrongs in the name of doing the most right possible, for having the most reach. They have leveraged themselves to a multiplicity of sources to keep all of the sources from being able to attack the other. They have gone into debt, they've committed murders, they've slaughtered, but all in the name of protecting what they feel is theirs. And they feel the entirety of Dalton is their responsibility to act instead of wait and consider, to move instead of get caught in hours and days of negotiations. As even while the city motto, the village motto is a village working together, a community working together, the Senate moves slower, decisively, but slow, and it puts others at risk in their pause, in their time to deliberate. And Jack has flouted them time and time again and managed to get away with it. Sooner or later, someone's going to catch on how many people they've leveraged themselves to. And as night turns to day and day turns to night, having ended the initiation of the ritual, just as the sun broke the horizon line, Seth awakens the next night and immediately launches back into the ritual. Despite all the onset and the sheer amount of energy directed at them, Jack is a person of conviction so strong that divesting them of a reason to fight very well nearly impossible. They live in a completely and totally paranoid state on a daily basis. So ratcheting it to the point where they are prone to something irrational requires an all hands on deck. The Renfields give their existences one after the other until there's only one left. The Dustborn begin to wither beneath the onset of the energy sapped from them. James' brow is furrowed in vitae-soaked sweat, and Seth, while not having the use of a mirror, knows that he is as equally taxed because of the simple fact that Jack lives an insane life. That Jack has bartered themselves to so many masters, so many would-be rulers of their soul. They live in a complete sense of fear at every waking moment.
So we just poured gasoline on a nuclear explosion.
Yes. And with that realization, and with that plight ahead of Seth and James, and with their focus determined, and they slowly begin to break through just after the meeting that Jack has with View, Felix, and several other Hakata, and deals and further deals are made. You hear by facsimile, by proxy, tenor of those meetings, deals furthered. You see the packets of ash created not from deceased kindred, but imbued and empowered, possessed Dustborn, so that the addictive qualities are ratcheted up because there's an actual soul involved, not just the strength of the damned. Several dozen packets of ash, all worth their weight in not just gold, but in kindred lives, because these packets, these pinkish white powders, instead of the usual grade, slightly burned embers that usually makes ash, have the ability to addict not just thin blood, but kindred as well. And with that understanding, we draw to a close as Seth and James ply their trade to lower Jack into complete insanity, functioning insanity.
Fuck that blue blood.
I see.
Yeah, I'm still a Tremere brother. It's the